Recall the spring of 2020. Your commute disappeared, the office closed, and the calendar emptied of appointments. Without any external pressure, many people experienced a creeping sense of disorientation as the days began to blur. This disorientation reveals a hidden truth. Most of what we call our character is actually the shape of other people's demands. We live inside an invisible scaffolding of schedules and social friction that keeps us upright. In total isolation, this external support evaporates. Consider Alexander Selkirk, the sailor who survived 4 years alone on a Pacific island. He was physically healthy and agile, yet he came off that island barely able to speak. Speech is a practice performed between people. Without an audience, the equipment of the self simply goes stiff. Selkirk's ruined tongue is the first sign of a larger collapse. When the frame provided by society is withdrawn, the personality doesn't hold its shape. In solitude, the body survives easily, but the internal structure of the self begins to dissolve. Boris Krieger argues that we have misread Robinson Crusoe for 3 centuries. We treat it as a children's adventure about a man who needed nobody. Most readers skip the boring sections, the endless accounts of labor, the meticulous accounting, and the strict daily routines. Yet these chapters are the heart of the story. Daniel Defoe wrote this novel after a life of recurring personal collapses, from the plague to political ruin. He used the character of Crusoe to document a technical manual for psychological maintenance, a record of how a man alone prevents himself from disintegrating. This manual offers a tested technique for anyone adrift. It addresses the central difficulty of being alone, the emptiness of the day's shape. Crusoe's first act of survival is the construction of a calendar. He carves a heavy post and squares it, cutting a notch for every day. He is terrified that if he loses his reckoning, the difference between Sunday and Tuesday will disappear. Defoe knew that when the days become interchangeable, there was no longer a reason to do anything on any particular one of them. He spent his career manufacturing structures, journals, pamphlets, and fake identities to keep himself upright in an unstable world. Science later verified Crusoe's fear. In 1962, the geologist Michel Siffre spent 2 months in a dark cave with no way to track the time. Without any external cues, Siffre's internal clock drifted. When his team finally called him out, his confident estimate of the date was wrong by 25 days. He believed he had been underground for weeks less than he actually had. This chart illustrates the biological necessity of zeitgevers, time givers. Sunlight is the most powerful, but Crusoe's post performed the same function. It provided an external anchor to keep his internal clock from drifting into a formless smear. The notch forces the mind to acknowledge a specific today. It is a physical act that turns time from an undifferentiated leak into a sequence of events. Crusoe spends 5 months carving a canoe out of a massive cedar, only to find he cannot move it to the water. He does not consider those 5 months wasted. A rigid project manufactures a schedule, and a schedule creates the experience of being expected. When the self setting the rule and the self obeying it are the same, the timetable functions like a second party that notices if you fail to show up. Modern space programs use this exact strategy to manage long-term isolation. Aboard the Mir space station, crews orbit the Earth 16 times a day, meaning they have no natural morning or evening. Dr. Valery Polyakov survived 437 days in this environment by following a schedule planned to the minute. Mandatory exercise, biomedical experiments, and shared meals provided the structure needed to maintain his stability. On landing, he insisted on walking to his chair to prove he was still functional. A long project provides orientation. Its value sits in the months spent with a task to perform, regardless of whether the boat ever reaches the water. To manage his despair, Crusoe uses the tools of a London merchant. He rules a page into 2 columns, performing double-entry bookkeeping on his own life. On one side, evil; on the other, good. Distress in the head repeats and grows. Distress in columns sits still. This ledger allows Crusoe to examine his circumstances as a balance sheet rather than a raw feeling, converting a panic attack into a decision. This is a 17th century precursor to the thought record used in modern cognitive behavioral therapy. It is the same discovery. Formless distress becomes a narrative that can be examined once it is written down. Writing a journal creates a surrogate witness. It splits the person into a speaker and listener, providing a temporary interruption to the silence of solitude. Boris Krieger presents a specific revelation. The self is not a thing you possess. It is a state you maintain through daily effort. Think of it as a fire or a garden. If you stop the work of maintenance, the structure degrades quietly. Selkirk didn't decide to stop speaking. The equipment of his personality simply went stiff when the social frame was removed. We are all living off a wreck, external structures of work, family, and routine that will eventually fail us through retirement, illness, or change. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation is a resource that isolation withdraws. Instead, build the frame, mark the days, impose a schedule, write a line at the end of every evening. These methods are mundane and often ridiculous, but they are the reason Crusoe is still a man and not just a body when the boat finally arrives.